Our progress has been genuine, but it has also been uneven, frequently spurred by landmark decisions and sustained campaigning rather than fundamental change. Often, the true test of our constitutional values lies not in grand declarations, but in how we respond to the everyday struggles of individuals who seek nothing more than an equal chance. In the case of Om Rathod versus the Director General of Health Services in 2024, a young applicant who was successful at the NEET exam, but with over 80% mobility impairment, aspired to become a doctor. The disability assessment boards turned him away consistently, based solely on statistical benchmarks. But we insisted in the Supreme Court that judgment be based on what we could do, not on what he lacked, on what we could do, not what we had set up to deny. We conducted a reassessment by a good doctor by the name of Dr. Satyendra Singh, an experienced medical doctor who uses assisted devices. And that showed that he was capable of pursuing an MBBS degree. The decision shifted the focus from disability to ability and set the precedent for how medical admission should be reimagined. This judgment became the forerunner for the National Medical Commission's interim guidelines on disability and medical admissions. Yet progress in regulation came with fault lines. In an article recently written in the print, Dr. Satyendra Singh, who is himself a physician with a mobility impairment and an intervener in the case before the Supreme Court, pointed out the fault lines in the National Medical Commission's interim guidelines, framed in the aftermath of the judgment. The guidelines, he explained, reduced the worth of a candidate to arbitrary physical tasks. Can you climb stairs? Can you bear weight on your limb? As if medicine were measured only in muscle and bone. They ignore whether a ramp could replace the stairs, or whether technology and support could enable the student to practice medicine effectively. In doing so, they shift the burden from the institution to the individual, demanding that the disabled body adapt while the system remains rigid. The so-called requirement that a candidate must have both hands intact, with intact sensation and sufficient strength, was censured by the Supreme Court as an ableist and unconstitutional rule. Equally invasive was the insistence on self-declarations, where students must spell out what they cannot do, a process that diminishes dignity and entrenches exclusion. Representation too was tokenistic. Only one person with disability, without deep grounding in disability justice, was placed on the drafting committee for the rules. But despite repeated judicial directions to revise these norms within fixed timelines, the NMC has continued to delay, leaving institutions and candidates without clarity. These fault lines remind us that progress in the courtroom must be matched by sincerity in policy. Dr. Singh speaks not as a distant advocate, but as someone who has lived this reality. He writes, and I quote, "I too have a mobility impairment. I cannot stand unsupported on one leg. Stairs have never been my friend, and yet I serve in a medical institutions. I have taught, practiced, published, and argued in the highest court in the land." Likewise, we have the example of Dr. Suresh Advani, one of the greatest oncologists who has ministered care on a wheelchair. We must guard against reverting to rigid clinical checkboxes. The system must center on human capability, not just medical percentage, and that remains a crucial ongoing conversation. This is precisely why in Om Rathod, we went beyond statistical disability to grant admission for a disabled student at the MBBS degree course, because lived capability, not numerical percentages, must guide inclusion. Another young girl who came to knocking at our doors in the Supreme Court got the same direction that she should be admitted to the government medical college here, one of the government medical colleges in Mumbai. She was good enough to get admission to a government medical college, but was denied only because she didn't have full strength in both her hands. The Supreme Court intervened, The other day, a young lawyer who appeared for her came to me after my retirement and said, I just wanted to tell you that she's doing brilliantly in college.